Hi guys, this is our classroom management project on handling difficult situations. Our three situations today are a student farts in class, there's an insect or rodent in class, and a student is getting searched in class. So we are here to talk about the first one, which is a student farts in class. So we came up with three different situations or three different ways to handle this if this happens in the classroom. The first one is if the student is bullied because of the fart or like other students start making fun of them, we decided that it's the role of the teacher to stop that right away and let the students know that that type of behavior isn't tolerated in the classroom. It needs to be a respectful and safe learning environment, and that is not allowed. Our second situation is if the student does it because they want attention. This could be like a senior year in class or like just the class clown that does this, and we said that it's the role of the teacher just to ignore the fart, and then when the classroom or when the class is working independently, go and talk to that student individually and just let them know that that is not allowed, that disruptive behavior isn't tolerated. And then the third one is if the student farts and then no one really reacts to it, don't bring attention to it, just ignore it and move on with your lesson.
Okay, and along with having our steps on how to handle these situations, we also wanted to include why we need these steps. And so for this one in particular, one of the huge reasons is because if bullying occurs, that cannot be tolerated in the classroom because it really hinders the learning environment and makes it just less of a safe place where you know that you're free to be who you are. And so we really wanted to put an emphasis on stopping bullying in that way, just because if that happens, that student really just wants to bury their head in the sand, and it just creates this difficult situation for them and can go towards other situations past this. And then also, it's important to remember not to talk to like the student who did fart in class privately, just because whether or not students see that, it's just going to make it worse for that student. They might become more embarrassed because of it, or just realize that it's more of a bigger issue than need be, unless it is the case where the student did it on purpose. Then you do want to talk to the student about that privately. And then the third reason is, like we were saying before, if the student does it just to simply get attention, that needs to be stopped because it can create more management issues within the classroom than need be. And yeah.
Alright, what do you guys want to do if you find a rodent in the class? So when this happens, the first thing you want to do is just have the students evacuate the classroom. Obviously, we don't want to be in the same classroom as a mouse. It's nasty. So get everyone out of there, and then you want to call the janitor and have them take care of the situation. That way you're not handling this by yourself. And then as soon as the rodent is taken care of, you guys can return to the classroom or stay in a different classroom, whatever the situation is. And then you also want to make sure that you're reporting the incident to administration, just in case this is like an ongoing issue with other classrooms or whatever it is.
And if an insect comes in your classroom, this is a little less severe, but kids still like freak out over this. So you would have the students, if it's that big of a deal and you notice students getting off track, you just have them pick up their feet for those who like don't want it to touch them or whatever. And then there's usually always a student who wants to like find it and kill it. So then you would kind of just have them do that for you, or unless you like are brave, you could do it yourself. And then obviously if it's just like one bug in the classroom, it's not that huge of a deal. But if you notice like there's an infestation and you're just getting a ton of bugs all the time, you would want to report it just in case. It's important to do this, obviously, because if a bug comes in the classroom, kids and like myself too, like as a teacher, like you just don't like those things. So obviously you're not going to want to handle it. So it's just important to have that in place. And again, if you notice that maybe your classroom needs to be sprayed, then that's something that you should address.
Yep. And then back to the rodent. So you guys want to make sure that you are leaving the classroom quickly. That way the students aren't, playing around with it, or, certain animals carry diseases, and you don't want to get your kids or yourself to get that. It'd be bad. And then, yeah, like we said before, just make sure you're talking to administration about this, just to make sure that it's not an issue in other classrooms, and you guys can get to the bottom of the situation.
All right, so now we're going to talk about searching students. So that's kind of more of a difficult situation. That's the most difficult situation that could happen in a classroom. And we're going to talk about the two different roles. We're going to talk about the administrator role first, and then we're going to talk about the teacher role in this situation. And the first step would be the principal should consider whether there is a reasonable suspicion for the student in question. If it's just some student that's mad at their friend and saying, hey, they have drugs, that might not be reasonable suspicion. It might just be the student wanting to get back at their friend. And the principal should understand and consult the school board's policy on searches. If the principal doesn't know them off the top of their head, they should go and really look into the policy so that they know what they're going to get themselves into. And if it is decided that there is reasonable suspicion, the administrator can then go search the student after consulting the policy again. So when conducting the search, the administrator can choose whether or not they want to have an SRO present, but the SRO may not conduct the search unless there is probable cause. So the only person that can be conducting the searches is that school administrator. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the teacher role. So when a teacher finds something when searching a student, this is after the policy has already been consulted, and this is after the teacher has decided whether or not they have reasonable suspicion. So when the teacher finds something when searching a student, or just maybe they see something, the teacher should not confront the student in front of the whole class and should consult the student privately, whether it's after class or during a class discussion. It should not be done in front of the entire class. And when there is a convenient time, the teacher should call the SRO and the appropriate school administrators and inform them of the situation at hand. That way the SRO can come and the administrators can then come and take the situation out of the teacher's hands so the teacher can go back to the rest of the class. And then it is taken out of the teacher's hand, and the SRO and the appropriate administrators come and help the teacher deal with it after class or at a less disruptive time than in the middle of a lesson. After the whole thing is done, the teacher will then have to fill out the appropriate forms or reports per the school policy. Again, that is based on what the school has put into policy for their searches, and it varies district by district, and the teacher will have to fill out forms kind of saying what happened.
Okay, so this is the why do it part. So searches and seizures deal with the Fourth Amendment. Basically, the teachers can do a search of a student if they have probable cause or a reasonable cause in order to be able to do it. If they want, they're allowed to have the SRO present during the search, maybe to keep the peace or just to make sure that everything's okay and that there's no violence or anything that's going to happen. But the SRO is not allowed to do the search because that is not their job. You can perform searches if you feel the need to do it, such as maybe if you heard a student say something or you see it, you're allowed to perform a search, but you have to have a reason to do it or consent from the student, to make sure that everything's okay with that. For your Fourth Amendment still applies in the classroom, and you can decide that you don't want to be searched or anything like that, but the teachers still can do it if they need to.
So these are 3 real-life situations that have caused a disruption during an actual school day. The first one being that sewage pipes in the whole school were clogged, and it was during the school day, and students were sent home halfway through the day because it was a health hazard and they had to be gone.
The second one is when a student from another class has to be air evac from the school due to a serious illness. This then causes a bunch of rumors and kind of chaos in your own classroom that you need to learn how to handle.
And then our third situation is if a major current event occurs during the school day. For example, September 11th, as teachers, do you turn on the news, do you watch it, or do you just go on with your day? Students can find out about these things, so just figuring out how and what to tell them in class.
Okay, so here are our assessment questions. So number 1, is there a time when the teacher would not address a situation in front of the entire class? And are you supposed to stay in the class when a rodent is in there?
Question 3 is, when do you address a student farting in class, and what do you do if nobody reacts?
Okay, and our last question is, can schools search a student without proper